Well, it's difficult to answer that question because I don't really feel like those letters really identify me, and those letters don't necessarily represent the diverseness of the entire community.
I can only speak on what it means to be African American and trans in Baltimore. And what that means is to be misunderstood, disrespected, and oppressed.
My life here as a lesbian is great, but I am aware that it's not like that for everybody.
Baltimore's a really embracing community that's welcomed me from the beginning.
Being gay in Baltimore, I don't think is much different than being gay in any other city.
There are times, like in my life, where I have like deep community and like love and joy and support. And then there are times when it's like not that, right? It's really like scary.
I feel like it's a much more welcoming community than it was when I was growing up.
Well, let me tell you, it's very interesting now to be gay in Baltimore because there's so many great opportunities that weren't there when I was younger. However, that's not always true for folks who are in a different social economic income level.
My experience of being queer in Baltimore is being seen.
Being trans in Baltimore requires an alertness, and when done right, welcomes a celebration.
Yeah, I want the future to have more spaces for LGBTQ young people to be and just have their whole selves expressed.
Not everyone has the same access to high-quality, welcoming, and affirming care, and I really want to see that change.
I feel the future will be a reallocation of discomfort. So what I feel now, when I bump up against oppression or phobias, I think will be understood more broadly because of empathy.
I would like to see a future that is free of oppressive systems that continue to abuse marginalized groups.
In Maryland, we're lucky to have excellent equality laws on the books. What we're hoping to achieve in the future is making sure that people's lived experiences match the principles that are enshrined in those laws.
I'd like to see more LGBTQ leaders in positions of power in Baltimore so that the community can be safer and more welcoming, not just for LGBTQ people, but also for everybody, so that everybody can find a place and be valued.
I want us to be a community that embraces our differences and empowers us to be us.
We're going to get there by investing in young people and their brilliance.
We need to support our youth and provide them a safe space to be empowered and be the change agents that we need them to be.
Youth in Baltimore are more vocal and more unwilling to let the status quo continue, and I think that providing a platform and resources to bring their voices to bear is the way forward for Baltimore.
LGBTQ youth who are supported are healthier. There is less drug abuse. There's less mental health issues. There is less bullying, and is better for our community.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. This is the 20-minute update from BCF. You just saw a video that we produced a couple months ago for an event that we did to launch our LGBTQ Fund here at BCF. So you saw a couple people who are in the room with me on that video right now, and I just want to take a moment to introduce them. I have with us Alice Young, who is a estate planning attorney at Newsonoff Smith. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And Frank McNeil, who is with PNC Financial Services Group. So both of them serve on our committee for the LGBTQ Fund here at BCF. So they are going to talk with us a bit today just about that committee, what they've done so far. We've made a number of grants that we just announced, so we're happy to have them here to talk a little bit more about that. So good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. So if you're on the call today, you did hear the audio for that video, but like I said, if you want to check out the full video online, we will have the recording of this conversation available for you on Facebook. So if you get a chance, go on Facebook and check that out at some point. Okay, so I want to just launch right into talking about the LGBTQ Fund. And before we get into it, I want to just have both of you tell me a little bit about how you got involved in the LGBTQ Fund here at BCF, and just give us a little bit of background on that.
Ladies first.
So my business is estate planning, and what I find is that people can approach their legacy planning and charitable giving through an estate planning conversation, and through that I became involved with Rosemary Calderalo from BCF, and she invited me to join the committee.
Great. How about you, Frank? What's your background here?
I'm in community development banking at PNC Bank, and we deal with sponsorships and grants and that sort of thing, but also been in Baltimore since the late 90s and involved with various committees around LGBTQ issues. And our regional president, Laura Gamble, is on the board here at BCF. Mm-hmm. So I probably bet she had something to do with convincing Rosemary to come, and you can't say no to Rosemary once she's asked you to do this, right?
That's true. She can't say no to Rosemary. I just want to give everyone a little bit of background about the LGBTQ Fund here at BCF. So about 3 years ago, we started having discussions. Rosemary Calderalo and a number of our other staff here at BCF sort of opened up a discussion about issues facing the LGBTQ community. It was a sort of deliberative, inclusive process. They brought in a number of leaders and people who were working in the field here in Baltimore, and that started the ball rolling on this. And over time, these discussions got to the point where they wanted to bring in more of the public. So about a year and a half ago, we had an event at the Maryland Historical Society, sort of a roundtable panel where we discussed these issues, and had a great turnout at that event. Following that, there was a committee that was formed for this LGBTQ Fund, and they used all that information that had been sort of recorded and over time as sort of their basis for what they were going to focus on. So just back in July, I think it was, we had an event where we sort of celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the fund. And then a couple weeks ago, we actually released our first round of grants, which was about $91,000, going to a number of different groups across the Baltimore community. And I wanted to just ask both of you sort of about your experience on the committee. Who's on this committee, what's their backgrounds, and can you characterize that a little bit for me?
Sure. We tried to span the breadth and depth of the LGBTQ alphabet. There are folks who are involved with nonprofits, folks who are involved in education and LGBT youth. There are folks who are involved in foundations and in for-profit organizations as well. So I think we did a pretty good job of touching base with just about everybody within the LGBT community, and certainly within here in Baltimore as well.
What have you kind of learned about maybe the LGBTQ committee or grant making, the organizations involved? I don't know, has anything sort of bubbled up for you since you started this process?
Well, like Frank said, the process of bringing a committee together and reaching into the different areas of the community brings a lot of different voices to the conversation. And things that I've learned have been related to healthcare for LGBTQ youth, homelessness issues, issues that involve underfunding of LGBTQ issues in education. And so with these different voices, everybody's bringing a different perspective, and we're learning, I think, a lot about ways that the service to LGBTQ youth could be improved.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we also saw. There is this big gap there. And I just want to maybe take a moment to talk a little bit about these grants. just to give people a little bit of a contextualize what programs are being funded. And before we get started, I want, maybe you can describe a little bit about what these grants, and maybe one that you found to be particularly interesting, not your favorite necessarily, but the list of grants here, and where this is going to be up on our website, it's very broad, and I mean there's very sort of diverse groups of nonprofits involved here that are doing lots of different things. So I don't know, maybe if you could, what kind of popped up into your mind as you went through the review process?
It's kind of hard to have a favorite, as you said, especially after spending some time reviewing all the fantastic submissions that we received. But the things that are some that stand out for me in particular, considering I grew up back in the Stone Ages when we didn't have positive role models in terms of LGBTQ, and some of the key ones that stand out to me are a couple of the ones that are going to be involved theater or creative, the creative industry, because they're going to do plays or create ways in which LGBT youth can see themselves in a positive manner. And it's from Iron Crow Theater to Friends School to Black Men's Exchange. There are some of the ones that were funded are going to again put out some positive role models and ways that, because I think back to the time again when I grew up, if I had had a positive role model or seen myself positively in the media or locally, things might have been a lot different for me growing up than they were. And so it's I think it's exciting for Baltimore's youth to be able to see a couple of different instances and be involved in a couple of different projects that are going to show, again, LGBT folks in a positive manner and an opportunity for them to be their whole selves so that they can, strive and succeed in the community.
How about you, Alice? Did any of these grants sort of, bubble up to the top for you?
Well, one of the criteria that we asked the applicants to address was collaboration with other organizations. So taking pieces from a healthcare organization like Chase Brexton and a theater organization like Single Carrot Theater, and bringing together, developing an idea to help youth create their own narrative. That was one of the grants that I was particularly moved by, because there were so many collaborative aspects and the possibility, like Frank said, of helping young people develop their own voices and see themselves in a positive way because of the exposure not only to role models, but the exposure to other youth who are themselves developing that positive self-image.
That's great. Just want to take a moment and stop for anyone who's listening on the call. If you have a question today for us, for our guests about the LGBTQ Fund, you can hit *6 on your phone and ask the question. I'll give you a minute to do that if you want to. *6 on the phone to ask a question. Okay, and if you're on the Facebook live stream, you can just post that right in the comments. We're actually getting comments right now. They're not questions, but a couple people said more power to you. Beautiful video, so people are supportive of this, which is great. I wanted to step back a minute and just talk a little bit more about what the focus of the grant making for this fund is. I did mention that at the top, but BCF and the committee are interested in sort of systemic change. And we kind of spoke to that in describing these grants, but I wonder if maybe you two could tell us a little bit more about that and sort of what that means, systemic change.
We were looking at something that might possibly move the needle when it came to, again, providing a positive atmosphere for LGBTQ. And we were looking at things that weren't limited to, but included things like policy changes, education, training, bullying prevention, and mental health, and life affirming in general. And those were the things that we tried to take into consideration for those who were selected from the submissions that we received, because we wanted to see that happen, at least get that aspect from the proposals that were presented to us. So, I mean, that was the focus for us.
What does life affirming mean to you? Big question, but...
Yeah, that's a big question.
Well, I think what Frank was talking about earlier about having role models and seeing people from our community that have met success through hard work and being accepted, and internalizing that to say, I could have that too. This is someone like me who is, prominent in the community and has a voice. Those are the types of changes that we would want youth to experience, so that as the next generation of leaders, they go into it with that inner light and that strength.
I like something that Alice said earlier too, and that was empowering. Feeling again that you can achieve success, that you can be your whole self, and bring your whole self to the community as well as to your work and to your job, knowing that there are opportunities out there for you to succeed, and that there are organizations that support you and are there to help you achieve that success if possible.
That's great. This is more of a technical question, but you both are, I wouldn't say brand new to community foundations, but maybe new to the process of being involved in the grant making review application process. What was that like for you? Sitting down, reading the grants, discussing them with you came in and sort of did a grant review meeting. Kind of describe that for folks, because I know there's a lot of our donors and stakeholders who are interested in how that all works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was a first-time experience for me, but the great part about this advisory committee is that it was not a first-time experience for many of the members. And so there were people who were veterans of reviewing grants and giving thoughtful feedback, and we were all in the context of BCF, which of course has tremendous experience doing that. And I thought the process was inclusive and kind of amazing, the way that all of these professionals came together, reviewed these applications, and strategically and thoughtfully went through and decided which of them met the criteria that we set out for applications.
It was also a little humbling as well when you see how creative people can be in terms of wanting to help LGBT youth and youth of color, as well as folks who are low and moderate income. And so, yeah, it was really humbling to think, and it made me think, what have I been doing with my life? Why couldn't I come up with some of these great ideas? But it was empowering, again, also to see that, again, with some support and funding, looking at the lives that we're going to touch, hopefully, over the next few years.
Awesome. Okay, we have a question. Let me just scan it real quick. So the question is, what is the fundraising plan for this fund? How are we spreading the word? There are a number of affirming and progressive churches in the area that should know about the fund as a place to give or get support for programs. So I guess I can sort of answer that question since it's a BCF focused question. We're starting, we've done obviously fundraising from our existing donors up to this point, and we're formulating the plan for the next step. The point about contacting churches, progressive churches in the area is a great one. I'm going to pass that along to our development team. I'm sure they're already putting together a plan there, but I will get with them and just maybe we can give you a little bit more detailed answer to that question online. So look for that after the call. One more chance for people who are on the phone to ask a question. *6 on the phone. Hi, go ahead.
Recently have put forth an initiative to celebrate Pride Month with the families that come to the museum. Our target age group is birth to 10 years old, and many people who do work around LGBTQ youth sort of think that that's not quite the right time to start. We feel, though, that certainly there are children who are transgender, non-binary, and many, many families who are LGBTQ, parenting couples, etc., who we would love to support. So I am wondering if this sort of focus on youth would extend down to the age group that we primarily serve.
Okay, so the question is who youth are. And as far as I know, from what I know about the fund, and I will double check this for you, it's anyone under the age of 18, right?
24.
Oh, 24. Okay, so as far as I know, and I'll double check with our community investment team to make sure, but youth would mean anyone under that age.
Sure.
And I don't know if you, from the grant, going through the grant review process, do you know what the age, sort of the general age range was there? Was it everyone from birth to 24? Or?
That was the key. I mean, we said we wanted to focus on LMI youth as well as people of color, but the idea again was anyone younger than 24.
Okay.
Because some of the grants went to French school, for example, and a couple of others that were dealing with folks who were in elementary school or middle school. So sure.
Great. If you could shoot BCF an email at bcf@bcf.org, just that way we can have your name and everything and send you information when the next cycle opens up. Okay?
Oh, I appreciate that very much. And the clarification is very helpful. I do come across grants on a regular basis that define youth really starting at middle school and going up. So this is a welcome opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're actually over time now, but I had one more question that I wanted to ask both of you, and that's for those who are maybe watching or listening today. What's the call to action? What do you want them to do to move this work forward?
Sure. So we had wonderful applications. This was the inaugural year, and unfortunately we did have to decline some of the applications. But going forward, having more donations, having a bigger fund, and more publicity and word out about it will enable us to give away more money in the future. So I think the call to action is build up the fund and get more thoughtful, collaborative applications.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I mean, it was perfect. We can't do this without support from the community. We only were able to give out, as you said earlier, about 91,000, but think about it, if we could give out 300,000 or more. So it's important for the community to get involved and to support this effort, for foundations to support this effort, for other nonprofits and other organizations who want to have an impact on this particular population to help support the effort so that, again, we can empower youth to be their whole selves and to grow up and be successful. And so, yeah, that's the main thing.
Great. And I'll just tack on one call to action. If you're interested in learning more about the committee that's involved with the LGBTQ Fund, we actually do have a website, which is bcf.org/LGBTQ. So I think maybe that's been scrolling on the bottom, but just a reiteration, bcf.org/LGBTQ, and you can find out more about the fund there. So like I said, we are over time, and I want to thank both of our guests for coming in, Frank McNeil, Alice Young. We really appreciate it, and want to thank our Civic Leadership Fund donors for making the 20-minute update possible, as always. And if you want to sign up for updates about the 20-minute update, go to bcf.org/enews. Thanks, and have a good day.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.